Have you ever wondered what absolute despair sounds like? It sounds like the cracking of 10-meter thick ice, squeezing a ship's wooden hull like an eggshell. In May 1845, the world saw them very differently. The pride of the British Royal Navy, Captain Sir John Franklin and 128 elite sailors set out where no European had ever set foot. They had the best technology of their time and 3 years' worth of food supplies. They believed it was a triumphant march, but the Arctic does not forgive overconfidence. September 1846, the ice trapped them with no escape. Months turned into years. Food was running out. Slow death from hunger, cold, and scurvy began its toll. Not one of the 129 men returned alive. Not one. For the next 170 years, the world searched for answers. Remains later discovered testified to horror, starvation, lead poisoning, and even like cannibalism. But the main mystery was revealed only now, in the 21st century, September 1846. It was supposed to be a brief respite, but the ice never loosed its jaws. Temperatures dropped to -50. Metal became brittle and the air burned their lungs with every breath. During the first winter, they tried to live as if nothing had happened. Dinners were scheduled, Bible reading, even literacy lessons for the sailors. But an invisible enemy lurked within their supplies. The cheap lead used to seal their canned goods began to leach into their food. Slow lead poisoning eroded their immune systems and clouded their minds. The crew began to decline physically and mentally. The second summer arrived, but the ice did not melt. The ships didn't move an inch. Panic began to seep through discipline. On June 11, 1847, Sir John Franklin died. The expedition lost its leader just when he was needed most. The first graves began to appear on Beechy Island, but the worst horror was yet to come: scurvy. The sailors' old wounds began to reopen, bodies literally disintegrated alive. The new commander, Francis Crozier, understood that remaining on the ships meant awaiting death. He made a fateful decision. April 22, 1848. 105 survivors abandoned the Erebus in terror. They planned to reach civilization on foot. They lugged hundreds of kilograms of unnecessary baggage. Their Victorian upbringing forbade them from throwing down their silver spoons in the face of death. They began to fall one after another. The weak were left where they fell. It was the slowest death march in history. They were heading for a place that would later be called Famine Bay. The Inuit described what happened next with horror. When the food ran out, the civilized British officers ceased to be human. April 1848. 105 men stepped onto the ice. They believed they could walk 1,000 kilometers. Every step was torture. Scurvy had weakened their muscles and brittle bones. They lugged hundreds of kilograms of silverware and books. Absurd Victorian pride became their death sentence. The cold was not their enemy. It had become their only reality. Their minds began to fade before their bodies. Every morning, someone didn't wake up. Those who had the strength simply moved on, never looking back. Summer arrived only on paper. The ice never died, leaving them trapped on King William Island. Local Inuit saw them. They described a group of white men who staggered and dropped dead as they walked. The last entries in their diaries became illegible. They were chronicles of agony. When their canned food ran out, they began eating their own shoes and leather belts, but this could not save them from starvation. Then came the moment that British history has been silent about for over a century, the moment when civilization completely lost to nature. Modern research on bones found on the island confirmed the worst fears. The remains showed signs of dismemberment. This was not an act of madness. It was an act of a last, desperate will to live. They began eating their dead comrades. Cannibalism became widespread. The last survivors kept alive by eating the first to fall. They reached a bay that would later be called Famine Bay. Here, the last lives of Franklin's expedition died. Time stood still for them. 129 people simply vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind only the terrifying legends of the Inuit. In London, Lady Jane Franklin spent a fortune searching for her husband. She sent expedition after expedition. Dozens of ships searched for them for 170 years. But the Arctic has a way of burying its secrets deep beneath the water. For decades, historians have debated, where exactly did the ships sink? Why weren't they found where the Inuit said they were? It wasn't until 2014, thanks to a combination of indigenous testimony and modern technology, that the impossible happened. The Erebus and the Terror finally spoke, but what they revealed was even more mysterious. Franklin's disappearance was for Britain what the sinking of the Titanic was for us. The country demanded answers. An unprecedented reward was offered. Dozens of private and government expeditions plunged into the icy hell. Over the next 10 years, searchers lost more people and ships than Franklin's expedition itself. They found only crumbs, scattered belongings, abandoned boats, and strange notes that offered no clear answer. In 1859, a single written document was found. It confirmed the date of Franklin's death, but didn't explain where the ships had gone. More than 150 years passed. Technology had changed, but the mystery remained. In 2014, the Canadian government launched the largest modern search operation. Researchers decided to check the area indicated by Inuit translations that had been ignored for 170 years. Suddenly, something appeared on the screen. It wasn't a rock, it was a ship. The world froze. 169 years after its disappearance, the Erebus was found. It sat on the seabed, almost intact. The ship became a time capsule. Cold water and the absence of light preserved everything, from personal things to secret documents. But the real shock occurred 2 years later. The second ship, Terror, was found 100 kilometers from the first. Everything looked as if the crew had just left the ship. Even the plates on the shelves were in their places. A new era of investigation has begun. Each item picked up told a new part of the story. The main hope of scientists is written records. It is believed that diaries explaining the logic of their actions could have been preserved in hermetic cabins. Geneticists began to identify the dead. Nameless bones are finally getting names. Why did they break up? Why did one ship find itself so far to the south? There were even more questions. Today we know the where, but we still do not fully understand the why. We look at these wreckage through the glass of monitors, but we will never be able to fully feel what they felt. This is not just a story about an unsuccessful expedition. This is a story about how fragile human pride breaks against the indestructible wall of nature. 129 men followed the dream of glory, but found only eternal peace in icy darkness. The lessons of this tragedy are cruel. Even the most advanced technologies are powerless if we ignore the experience of those who have lived in these lands for thousands of years. Only now are we learning to listen to the Arctic instead of trying to conquer it. Franklin's story remains with us as a warning against excessive self-confidence. She keeps her secrets under a layer of ice, and we are only at the beginning of the long road to the truth. But are we ready to hear the complete truth? Are we ready to accept the horror of what happened in Hunger Bay? Some secrets must remain buried, but human curiosity knows no bounds. Do you think they could have been saved if they had listened to the Inuit and left the ships earlier? Share your opinion in the comments. Your theories often turn out to be no less interesting than the official versions. Thank you for going this way through the ice with me. Subscribe so you don't miss the next dive into the darkest pages of history. See you in the next video. And remember, history is always nearby, even if it is hidden at the bottom of the ocean.